Köszönöm szépen. It's the only word in Bulgarian. Thank you, Susan, for the invitation and for introduction, and especially Petra Kovac. She made the whole organization, and that is a lot of work. You can imagine also tomorrow the workshop. And Petra, the other Petra, for the introduction, for the Hungarian production of this PowerPoint. So, you hear, I'm an old lady, long experience, 40 years with the life, with the work of autistic children, but also in the psychiatric hospital. It's okay like this? Mm-hmm. Yes? I like to give you an introduction for 1 hour. It is only an overview. It's not so, I cannot go so really deep, but in the last 20 minutes you will see practical examples, and that is the easier to understand for everybody. First, I like to start with a little bit theory, because music therapy needs a basis, needs a theory. Otherwise, we say music is good for everybody, you know, but it is not good for everybody. It has also dangers in it. And to understand where is the limit of our work and where we can work, we need theories. Now, this AQR tool, it means assessment of the quality of relationship, is developed from my colleague Calvet. She is France, coming from Paris. She was living in Berlin, and she is a...
I try it from this angle.
Okay. And she is a psychologist, developmental psychologist, and work with me together because our children goes in the same classroom. So it was very, yeah, perhaps we have meet each other. And she was the filming lady and the analyzing lady, and I was the music therapist and all this work. So I start, she filmed, we analyzed together. And that we have done 20 years. And during these 20 years, slowly comes out this tool, this assessment tool to evaluate the music therapeutic work. Evaluate means why we do what, with which aim, what comes out in our work. The third lady, Silke Reimer, she is a student, she was a student of mine, she's now a colleague. She helps us to publish it at the end of this process. We publish it in little steps, but then we make a whole book of it, and she was then the author. She makes order in our thoughts in the last 10 years. And now we give these courses, like Vienna, we 3 persons are the docents of these courses. Now first we have to understand why the relationship is so important, this question of quality of relationship. When you work with autistic children, like me, 40 years I had this clientele, this patient, you ask, what is the qualitative impairment exactly? So in Hungarian, oh, you have it here, the qualitative impairment of the patient in interaction, in communication. What is this impairment? Why they have this? We don't know today why autism comes out. We don't know it. We have only hypotheses. We speak about it. And we know that it is not only the verbal communication which is disturbed, it is also the non-verbal communication. And that makes it difficult. It's not only I don't speak, no, I don't show, for example, I cannot show how I feel myself. I have no mimical reactions. I don't point it out if I see something. I don't include other persons in my perception. I am alone. I am isolated. And then it makes so difficult to come in the system of these persons, to come in contact with these autistic children, because they have a picture of us. So how we can have a picture of them if they cannot express how they feel, if they cannot express what they think? That makes so difficult. but so interesting for us, especially when you have the medium music. So the third symptoms are the stereotyped movements, especially with mental retardation. You have movements who comes again and again. And one hypothesis is that the perception is disturbed. The process of perception is not going on like in our life. And so they reduce all senses and make some movements they can integrate. They search his own movements. Nobody learns a stereotype movement. No, it's coming from them alone. If autistic people are mentally not retarded, and that exists also, then they have all the time the same thoughts. They have only one theme is so interested, all the other things are not exist. So they have a stereotype thinking. It's also complicated for the environment to speak all the time on the same things. Yeah? For example, a boy asked me the whole hour, what is the weather today? How is the weather? And is the weather there the same like here? And can we call my father because I like to know is the weather? And so on and so on. The weather. Or they have another obsession. Yeah? So we have then to go back to the non-verbal communication and cannot answer the whole time, it's for nothing. We have to see what is a non-verbal contact to these persons. Now, my specific view on this picture is a developmental psychological view. That is not in every country like this, in every societies of autism, they don't have this view. It is my specific, and also from Calvet, from Claudine Calvettel, she gives me this influence to see this picture with the question, what is the child miss out in the first year emotionally if they come in this world without contact possibilities? So you see, I give the whole picture the main focus on the emotions. I'm not so interested what they can do mentally, because the mental states can be very deep, very high, but everybody who has these autistic symptoms is in an affect contact disorder. The affect contact is a problem. Also, you know maybe Asperger syndrome. Now, Asperger, he was a teacher of mine 7 years ago, or 15 years ago, and he spoke about Asperger, he spoke about boys, because he thought there's a genetic problem, that more boys than women have these autistic problems, and he spoke especially about mental good developed children with speech. He was not so interested in the mental retarded. But Leo Kanner, also an Autrish-Hungarian man who was going to USA before the Second War, so before and between, they never meet each other. It is very interesting. They spoke at the same time in the 1940, around this time, they spoke about these autistic children. But they never met, they never spoke, because Asperger couldn't speak English, and Leo Kanner published only in English. So they had no chance to speak together. But the difference was that Kanner was interested in everybody who has these affect contact problems, and Asperger was more interested in the mental, good developed but isolated, social, emotionally, the same problem. You find in the internet the 7 cases from Leo Kanner, how he described exactly these children. Because he says to the parents, write down what is doing your child at home, write exactly down. And then he makes these cases, this description of cases, and you can see how different are these children. But all have these affect contact problems. Through Calvet, this psychological woman, she gives me the idea to write Daniel Stern. Daniel Stern was a man He's died now, coming from USA, lives then in Geneva, and was first a psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, and became later an infant researcher, because he said, I like to see what really is in the early time, and not only the stories of the adult peoples about the early time. So he go back and observe babies together with their mother. And this book, The Interpersonal World of the Infant, it is in Hungarian here. Petra has found it, and very good read it. She worked with it. And this paper, what you have in your hands, is coming from this book. So it is a really deep and not easy to understand book. And I wrote then my diseases, my doctor diseases about this book and my work as an experienced music therapist. I was 40 or something else if I start to do this, because it was very helpful that I have seen all these phenomena before I had a theory. So I don't search the theory before I read. No, it was the opposite. And I found it was like somebody described me now what I have done all the years. And it was so, for the searching process, much better, because the connection was then really put down. And I wrote it, I think, 3 times, this book. And then I go and say, what is now my profit as a music therapist to make order in my experiences. Now, if we focus the social emotional development, we have to make clear what are the typical tasks in this area. To be, after 3 years, 5 years, emotionally empathic, because that is the aim of a relationship, that you have a sensitivity for another person and for yourself. That is the basis. If you don't feel your own body, you cannot describe or imagine another body. If you have not own gestures, you cannot understand other gestures. So this is this exchanging process as a result of perception. That is the first basically question. And how I said before, maybe autistic children, or very often I see that they have problems with the perception. Unreliable, yeah? It is not sure what they see, what they experience in the body. It's not sure what they listen, because, and that is one theory, they have a problem to cross all the senses and to have one experience with all senses. They have here and here and here something, but it's like a puzzle. They cannot come together. And then this chaos must be the cause that they go in a stereotyped movement, because then they reduce this chaos. That is one theory. Then we see, if we cannot cross or intermodel, how Stern says, the perception, then we have problems with eye contact. Because eye contact is a focus, we have to focus them. Also, a person who was adult and autistic, she said to me, I cannot look in your eyes because there is too much in it. And I thought to me, it makes me unsure, it makes me crazy, so she said. Why? The so-called vitally effects, the effects of coming out if you see somebody in the eyes, did change your emotional state. And if you are unsure that you have emotions in it, you cannot exchange this state, and that makes you sugar, how you say, yeah? It makes you unsure than before. So you go away from this eye contact, and that is inborn, that is a catastrophe, because through eye contact, you exchange from the beginning of your life the emotions. Through eye contact, you see what is the face of my mother, what is my state of, and is it the same or is it different? You know, you make 100,000 on the day. You make these experiences of what is in the face of another person. And then you look away, you come back, you study. Little babies study our face. Longer than we can stay. Yeah, we look away. They start to stay, they say, what is this? and they go with the finger in the mouth and in the eyes and like to know what is this face, and then there comes in the face, so what is the emotion behind this face, and then they feel the hands and the body and they listen to the voice, and then it comes together to one point. If my mother is looking like this, and she's holding me in this way, and she's speaking this way, or she's singing this way, then it must be this emotion. And can I share this emotion? Or have another emotion now? Very, very interesting development, and that we do in the first year of our lives normally. So another problem what I have discovered is that the vocal expression is also not normal with autistic children. We could, very early, we could see there is something wrong. After 6 months, it must be a change in vocal expression. You know, the baby has a lot of vocal, but the autistic has all the time the same. It is not normal, you know, and we could make this diagnosis much earlier than we do it today. We wait too long time. That is one idea that I have. We have to see very early there is something wrong if a baby is not vocalizing in a good way. The core self, that is in a term of Stern, it means it is the body. I give it in Hungarian for others. The core self, it is the kern, yeah? It is the middle point of the focus of your body. And this body feeling is the basis of contact. If you have a bad body feeling, it's a problem to feel what is in this other body, you know, because you are so engaged to know what is in my own body that you are not free to be impressed from another body. You can see this if you dance with somebody. How is my dancer? Yeah, it depends on his body feeling. If he has a good body feeling, he can imagine where the step is going on in the next minute. If he is engaged in his own body, he is so searching, yeah, that he makes this one, because he is not clear what happens if my weight is going in this direction. And he cannot be engaged in my body. And this body-to-body communication is also disturbed with autistic people. Now, this picture now from your paper. Please read it at home, because otherwise I go home now and you will be engaged to understand. It is not so complicated like it seems. And I have tomorrow and after tomorrow more time to go deeper in this stuff. But I'd like to give you an overview. Daniel Stern speaks from a layer model. Layer means it is not a phase, and it is then finished, and then come another phase, like Freud has done this. His opinion is that all these themes are themes of our life. The whole life is connected with perception, for example. And the whole life is connected with the body. The whole life is connected with affect regulations. Yeah? You are involved or you are not involved. That is a theme of the life. It is not only starts in our first year. And it has a specific development. And my theme is that the AQR, this assessment tool, helps to understand where my patient is staying in this developmental state, in the state of development. How old he is in reality, not on the paper, not 8 years and so on. No, he is maybe 8 years, but his state of development can be 9 months. Depends of the view of this human being. If you see the emotion, social-emotional development, you see this big delay, sometimes of 8 years. And this makes the conversation, non-verbal and verbal, so difficult, because we speak with an 8-year-old looking boy, for example, or girl, but we have the reaction of a baby. And that is very confusing. But if we know to handle it, you will see you find then a better intervention if you go really in this age of 9 months and not you continue a verbal dialogue with a baby of 9 months in the expectation he has to answer. The first task, it's starting before the birth. You have here the birth, and then here 9 months, and then here 18 months, 3 years, and so on. And he says the first 3 layers, the first 3 themes starts in the bump. It is not coming from the birth. And he spoke in the first layer, how I said before, the main task is that you cross your senses. The cross-model perception is the main task in these first months. On the same time, we have here this term emergent self. It means we come to the world and we don't know that we exist. We have not an I. I am born now. Hello, world. No. We are 9 months a part of the mama, the part of the wife who brought us on the world. And then we come out. Must be a shock, I think. No? But it was so, we take room. Maybe it's also nice to have room now. But we don't know that we exist and that we have a partner or a mama or parents or sisters. We are very here as a perception something. And we have not a contour, and we have not a body feeling in this way that we have a conscious body feeling. We have a body feeling, we have hungry, we cry, we have reflexes, a lot of, but we are not in this awareness of being. And I think if we see autism like an immense delay of development, we can better understand that they don't really have a self-feeling. They don't know that they have developed stereotyped movements, for example. Only through specific interventions, we give them a help to become aware of what they are doing. We will see this tomorrow in the workshop especially. So, imitation, eye contact, vitality effects, all this is not really developed in these children. But it is normally the task of the first months of our life. Background feelings, you translate it also in Hungarian, means that are all these feelings in the body, where we have not an awareness. For example, only if we are hungry, we know, here's the stomach, maybe, or only if we have a back problem, maybe this is my back. Normally, if it's okay, we never have problems with this. The heart, if you don't have a heartbeat, you don't know where is the heart. So in this environment of being, we can imagine this children lives without awareness of being. And we help through interventions to come in this emergent self for the first age. The next term, the next layer, how he says, is connected with the body, how I said. The body has to be in an awareness. We have to develop the feeling of being the author of an action. If I cry, it sounds like this and I feel this. If I don't cry, it's not so. I cry, I don't cry. So these are the first awareness from being, that I have feedback in the body. Or I have a movement with my rustle and I have this on the bed and I say, okay, it makes a sound. If I don't do this, it makes not a sound. So you can see very clear in the face of babies, when coming out is awareness of being the author of an action. Self-coherence means I have a body who really has a center and has a coherent feeling. Self-history means I know that I am the same the next day. I remember, my body remembers the same voice, the same handling of my mother, so I know it, that I exist. It comes slowly, slowly, and will better and better develop. The next layer is a very interesting layer for music therapists, the most impressed themes, because we can go directly in it. And Daniel Stern, he was not a musician, but he spoke about this, with these terms, resonating, regulating. You know, music is a resonance phenomenon. So how he connects to these words, it's very interesting. He means we are together. We have no front limit between us. We swing together. And with this self in the presence of another, he means that mother gives a frame to the baby. Baby is free, but mother is so concentrated on the baby. She is aware what the baby is doing, and through this concentration, the baby gets aware that he or she exists. This being together without going directly in this world of another person. Regulating, that is a big theme, because we know that a lot of people have problems with regulation from effects, also normal adults sometimes. But if it's really a symptom, then we spoke about dysregulation of effects, and in music therapy it's a fantastic idea to go in these effects and to share high effects and to shape these effects. We will do it tomorrow in the workshop. Now we see this next layer is the first who really comes out afterwards. Yeah, you see, so about 9 months, he speaks about the relatedness of intersubjectivity. Intersubjectivity. So it's the first step where we really realize, more than before, then we are another person than the others. It's a big step. A big step. After the birth may be the biggest step, that we realize that we are not the same person like the mother and father, our environment persons. He speaks about 4 different characteristics of this intersubjectivity. He says we need the so-called inter is every time this being together feeling, inter-attentionality, also joint attention. Yeah, it's the same word, it's only another term. Inter-intentionality, you can do something at the same time, you have the same wishes. Joint attention means you can point it and mother and child are interested on the same topic. That's what you need in the pedagogical work. You need this joint attention. If this is not given, the pedagogical way, the normal methods of imitating, doing something together is not possible. So music therapy is very engaged in people who have no joint attention, because music can go further to this other person. We will see this also tomorrow. Then intentionality and inter-affectivity, this means this sharing feelings, sharing of subjective state of effects. We can be together in a good mood, we can be together in an exhausted mood, and so on. So sharing subjective feelings. And what is music? Music is sharing subjective feelings. We hear it afterwards, a little bit of it. Social referencing, you, means the baby is now, or the little child is now able, after about 9 months, not only to focus a person, no, he is now interested to include also another person in what he is experienced. For example, if he has something new, a new toy or a new action on the playroom, then he is unsure. Is this toy good or not, or is it dangerous to take it in the hands? So in all situations where something is new, this little baby search an adult person. Can you say me, only with the view, without words, can you help me, is this a good thing here? And then the person will say, and then they say, oh, it's fine, it's a good thing. Or the mother says, oh, and then it falls. Yeah, it gives away. So it is dependent from the relationship capacities. Yes? Oh, okay. So this referencing view is a sign that somebody is developed 9 months. Now, if you work with autistic children, then you see they have not this capacity very often. They don't include us in their own perception. And that makes so this feeling of isolation. So if we see this in the work of music therapy, we see we have a new result. We have a new step. We help to develop a new step of development. We see this afterwards in the films. The last 2 layers, I get it together because it is this phase where you start to speak and you start to narrative, how we say. With 3 years we narrative the whole day to the parents what happens and so on. We can speak now. But this verbal communication is only possible if the layers before, the tasks before are done. Otherwise, the language has a particular problem, like no prosody, no melody, or like echolalie. They say all the time the same. Because the emotional development before is not in order. So the brain can speak, we can speak, but we lost some of these typical characteristics before. We don't have this experience, for example, exchanging emotional states. And if we cannot exchange emotional states, we have not a communicative verbal language. We can speak like a motorical capacity, but this speaking is not, very often, not really sensual and not directed to other people. So we see here also the lack of prosody, echolalie, how I say, are the problem. Also the capacity to symbolize, so to have inner pictures of this world is not developed. So if I say to a girl like this, or a boy, why you do this? Why you give away this guitar? Why you have done this? He don't know to answer. He cannot reflect an action. He is not so far developed. So you see also on this point, they are younger than we think. They don't continue a discussion like this. They go angry then. They say, let me, I cannot answer. So this is very important to know. Also, if you speak, it's not clear that they can symbolize. Also these games, what you do with children, play like a lion or play like a bad man or so on, they cannot really understand because they cannot integrate this picture that we have seen before in the world if this object is not in the room. So again, for the music therapy, this layer for me is the most important task, to regulate the effects, to be in the presence there, because only then this person can really develop a self-agency. The self-agency is a result if the environment gives room to do something for myself, and not how we do very often with handicaps. We are doing too much for them, and then they cannot really be in an authorship. They don't have this authorship, develop this authorship. Yeah, we have seen this before. Now the result of this AQR tool was then this book, also in English now. It was a hard work, 8 years for the translation. And now we switch to a new field, to the practice. Mary Ainsworth, she is also a psychologist. She has this term sensitivity, and she says sensitivity means to be in a good perception, to have also a good interpretation of perception, because I can go see how you sit here, but I interpret you're boring. Then you say, no, it's not. I only look maybe like this, but I'm not boring. So it's a false interpretation of mine. So maybe you are tired because the party was too long time yesterday, and I think, oh, it's my speech, and then irritated, and you say, no, it's a fourth interpretation of the signs. So that means interpreting. And then the reaction must be prompt and appropriate. It means what I have seen, what I interpret, then I have to react in a good way, so that the communication really can go on. A good relationship has this characteristic of sensitivity, but exchanging of sensitivity of more than one person. In the therapy, only we are this person who can be sensitive of the child. The child cannot be sensitive of our person. That is the first situation. The AQR helps, this analyzing of situation helps to see, is the therapist able to go really on the state of development of the child? Or is it too high or too low in his expectations? It's very difficult to assess my patient, how old he is in reality. What is really his capacity to answer on my intervention, to go in my world. Are I on the right point? If I found this really, if I assess in the right way, then I will have so-called shared moments. It means we have then a relationship. The relationship comes out of this being together on the same level of development. We will train this tomorrow too. Now this, don't be worried, you have not to learn it today. I give only this overview, and then you will see this practical in the practice world. We have 4 scales. It's a material where we can show where is the child, where is the therapist. 3 scales for the child, 1 scale for the therapist. And these colors help us to later to visualize this in a very short form. Red means affect, body language, eye contact, body. Yeah, what is in this body? We see everybody very quick. Before we think, we have a feeling of the affect situation of somebody if we are concentrated on them. And for me as a music therapist, is the first question, what is the mood of my patient today? How he comes through the door? What is my first impression? What feeling are these? How sounds this feeling if I would play with an instrument? How sounds this patient if I would sing something for him? A very interesting question. Can I make audible what I feel in this first moment? A boy, it was not an autistic boy, a speaking boy, a traumatic boy, he says to me, how you know it? Because he comes in very unsure and nervous, and I played on the guitar and and he stopped me, how you know it? Stop it! Because he was so touched of this, and he couldn't control the situation. And that was a problem for a traumatic person. It's very, very big danger. Music can be a very big danger on the beginning because it's overwhelming. So interesting that music can really give us a feedback of our situation, of our, if you improvise and you have not a fixed piece, that you have not to teach your person something. No, you turn around, you say my person, my patient is the starting point, and I make now music for him, to touch him, to feel that we are aware of each other. So the next scale is the vocal scale, vocal pre-speech scale, where we need the voice to come together, and we see what is the child doing with the voice. Has he a voice, and is this voice directed on me or not? So we analyze this expression. The third scale is the instrumental quality of relationship. It means how handle this person instruments. Is he aware of these instruments? Is he putting the instruments in the mouth? Or is he looking at the instruments? Or is he playing on the instruments? Or is it playing together with me on the instrument? All these different modi, how we say modus, yeah, the way how we interact, all these different modus are very clearly described, so that if you see this scene, you can say, oh, if I see this, maybe it's a modus 3 or 2 or 1. Yeah, it is a specific state of development. And the second question would then be, can my intervention, and that is the 4th scale, can I go on this level of development to reach the person which I work? So this, in Hungarian, you can have this PowerPoint and without films, you can read it in quiet situation. Here we have the child, and here we have, yes, it's these 3 scales for the child, and every modus, we have 7 modus. Yeah, 7 because we found that it's good to distinguish one from the other, and these modi are related to this concept from Stern. So we start with the perception, and then we go to the effect, and then we go to the self-awareness, and so on. It's related to this concept of development. And every modus has specific characteristics, and so you can learn to assess this state of effect, this state of development. But the most important scale is for me the therapeutic scale, because if we don't know what we are doing, and we have no words to communicate these working methods, we can never understand, is this a good result here? Have we worked in a good way? Or is only the patient so difficult and we have done a good thing, or we have made a fault and the patient could be further if we don't do these wrong things? So we have to be really critical with us. And we have to go in the supervision to speak with other persons, to discuss what you think in this scene of 1 to 3 minutes. Not more is necessary. Not more is necessary. I can see in 1 to 3 minutes if a person is or is not together with this patient. What is my hypothesis in this moment? What I think with what kind of intervention I work, how I get a word for this, why I take this instrument, why I play in this way, why I don't stop here, why I do too long maybe, and so on. You have a lot of questions if you ask yourself why I do this in this moment. And then you come to this question, is this the level of my patient? Is it right? You know? And then you go in the other 3 scales and you compare all the time these both and you have an answer. So the aim of our work with persons, they cannot imitate. They have not really an awareness of our person. They have no capacity to play. Playing is not so easy for a person who is so disturbed. Playing, sometimes parents ask me, what is playing? Playing, my child has to learn to speak. But without the capacity to play, you cannot learn to speak in a communicative way. It is so normal for us that we forgot that we played the first 3 years before we really learn. Learning in this school, orientated on these subjects, on these topics of other people. First, we were alone, we speak a little bit with our vowels and consonants, we blabber, yeah, but we don't are directed to other persons, and we are very interested to do something what is not so necessary, how the adult says. Playing is not so necessary. Playing is the middle point of development. If you cannot play, you cannot learn. So that you have to speak with your parents, the parents of children, why they have no motor of development. Because they don't play. The motor is playing and not learning. Learning is the result of playing. Now we have here the first films. Easier now, you can. It's much easier if you see an example. So we have here these 7 modi, very short terms. First modi, lack of contact. It is my feeling as a therapist. The child is not interested in my person, neither in instruments. And you will see the first scene, it is a boy, 7 years old, and we assess him in this emergent readiness. He is not really aware of himself. He is full of stereotyped movements. He has a cable in the hands and is not seeing what these hands are doing. He is seeing to another point and makes something sensorially, self-stimulating, we say this. Yeah? It is not we play with the cable. You know, if we would play, we would coordinate eyes and hands. But this is the sensory being in the world. You do something, but you are not aware of it. And it was not a first lesson, but that's why I'm so astonished first. He come in the room and sit with the back to me. So very clear, no contact. I speak afterwards of these others. We start. These are then the next steps, and now we have to every modus an example, a practical example. These film clips come from my work. We see 4 boys with the diagnostic autism, 7, 8 years old. Yeah, 2 can speak, but not in a regular way, and the others no speaking. The mental retardation were more or less there, I would say. You see here the situation. He is sitting in a hammock and show me the back. I start to improvise first, then I sing a song. Maybe you know it. Hey, yo, Spannenhagen. It is a German song, and you know it. Fine. So you know also the content. Do something because the rain is coming very early, very quick. And I think afterwards why I had this song. It was not a routine, it was really falling in my mind. And I think I thought, you have to help me too, to develop yourself. I cannot do it for you. So come on, baby. That was a little bit in the song. But then I see he's not reacting, and I go back to free improvisation, and I let him free. I call this surrounding, or give him a musical space. Don't be too direct. Don't say to him, come on, come on, come on. It is absolutely counterproductive. So go away, go in distance and play, let the music speak. That is my experience. You think maybe there is nothing going on, but my experience is that after an intervention like this, the child stand up and go so a little, he would say, maybe I could do something with you, but not yet, not so quick. But never you have as a result a restriction, you know, no, don't play, don't do this. If you really take him room, take him this musical room, this musical space, then you have a bigger chance that the child will come in your direction or will be connected with the music, not with your person, but with the music. The next big step connected with the Stern's model are the perception. So the same child, you will see, he likes to sit on the, or to jump on the trampoline, but in a stereotyped way. So he is very closed in this moment, he is not open. And it's not connected with fun. It is more research, I think, the body. Research where I am, that is the most, I think. So I include myself in this way that I am standing after him because he has no eye contact. So it's better you do something not with eyes. And I take the weight of this boy, and he gives a starting point, and then I take this rhythm off in connection with the weight, and I sing a nonsense song. And my aim is that you listen the same thing, what you feel in your body. So rhythm, intensity are connected. And you will see what happens. Yeah, it's exhausted. But you see, I have seen this afterwards, not if I work, that he smiles. So what is the cause that he goes in a positive emotional state? My hypothesis is that the cross-model perception gives this feeling of being. I am. And this makes this coherence feeling, and this makes an end of the chaos that he has before. This is a so-called shared moment in this way, because I feel it's good for him, but I stop, I have to stop. Every time it's good, you have to stop. Not go longer. Because if you do something too long, that is an overstimulation. Yeah? And if he show this, we do this together, then I know he has something experienced. And the pose needs, is this time, to include this experience. What happens? And then I can repeat it. Then I can do it again. But make pauses. That is very important for this version. The next big question, we had it before, is the affect problem. It is a child hospitalized, very autoaggressive. He bites in his hands, he bites other people. He is not autistic in my sense. He calls autistic other people, but I had the feeling he's a hospitalized child, a normal mentally retarded child, but was very often in different places in the first 7 years. I think 8 places. Family and institution, other families and so on. So he was a deep bounding problem. And only he learned 3 words. Kaput, you have this in English, yes, international. Kaput, help, and then sometimes he can say no. That was the only words that he had. So I start, because I was afraid that he beat me, he was beating my friend, so I said, don't beat me, beat the drum. That was my quick reaction. And then I take a big drum, so I am also a little bit protected. And then I start to improvise a song about these words, kaput. What is kaput? And between this refrain, he sings in this way, you will see what is the pressure here in the voice, and he sings during I play and we play the drum. So it takes 2 years, I think, that he comes down slowly, slowly, more and more, and that his voice comes in this singing form, and that this play would be a play, because here it is an expression, it is a high expression of dysregulated effects. And interesting was that he focused my eyes all the time in a controlling form. It was not exchanging, it was controlling what she will do if I cry, what she will do if I do this. Because it's not used, that is allowed to do this. And music has this fantastic capacity to express something what you cannot say in words. What can you not reflect, but you feel it. And if Daniel Stern says interaffectivity, you know, I share here these effects. I try to attune him and to follow him in the same intensity. And that is very interesting to learn. So go really in the intensity of my patient and form and shape it. Not go only in, you have to shape it. Because otherwise you go in overwhelmed of it maybe. So, and this you have to do very, very often, because he lost this experience in all these first years. There was nobody who came and helped him to regulate himself. The next step, also in relation to Stern's developmental concept, is this core self. You have seen he is beating himself because the core self is not sure developed. The effect is overwhelming him because the core self is not there for him. That is my hypothesis. So we like to work with the core, also in music therapy, because we have the possibility to include the core. Music is coming from the core. So to include the core in the work and to make audible what is in the core, and then to express themselves through instruments or through voice. How old is a baby who do this? Lying on their back and playing with tools. You see this immense delay. He's 8 years old. He can speak, but he is very echolalic, he is very dysregulated, he is immensely isolated, he cannot learn. And you see, if you really let him, this phase, let him be, let him explore the world before you teach him something new thing. Then he comes to himself. He never is calm in this way normally. He's exhausted. He makes a lot of difficult things for the environment. But in this moment he is calm. He is concentrated on his hands. He can explore. He can say, okay, if I make this, it's quiet. If I lost them, it sounds, like I said before. So these first experiences, normally it is in the first year of your life, a place for these experiences. So we have to go back. Also, if the environment says here, no, we have to go back in this specific way and to follow slowly this way to be developed. Then we reach him. Then we have no isolation problems. Now the next scene shows the first signs of a dialogue. It's also a boy who can speak, but he is not be touched, nevermore. He cannot be touched. It's very dangerous. So for me, it speaks for a bad body feeling. And in this, it was a summer day. It was hot. He was lying on the floor, and he likes a music. It is a children's song, a children dance music. And he starts to show me with his hands what he is listening. And I react with body percussion, because body percussion is a fantastic way to come to the core, to the body of another person. You touch him rhythmically. It's not privately, And that was he exactly. I forgot one scene before, excuse me. The same boy, like before, and then come the other scene. This boy now, it's the same from the first scene, developed so well that he starts to play instruments. And I'm only staying behind, in front of him, and he is looking me like this social referencing view, which I spoke before. This is the specific social referencing view that was now developed. He includes me in his experiences. That is new for myself. It's like you arise as a person, before you doesn't exist, but now he includes you. And that gives a good positive reaction also in the therapist, and you share positive feelings. So you have again these inter-affectivity moments, seconds, but they are the motor to go further. Now comes the dialogue. And the dialogue needs this awareness of another person, needs a picture of another person. You cannot be in dialogue, you cannot exchange if you have not a picture of another. You are distinguished of this other person. And that is very difficult for an autistic person. If they are not really developed for himself, how he can be distinguished of another. And that's the cause why he cannot really be in dialogue, means exchanging ideas, exchanging also musically. You see these fine exchanging processes, if you don't are fixed, you say this play has to be like this. No, you have this to decide, my dear boy, what you are doing, and I can react on it, or I can have an idea and I will see what you are doing. Sometimes I try to make a variation, he doesn't like it, so I return to my first form. Sometimes he imitates me, and the best moment for me is if we are synchronized, we make the same movement. Synchronized movements in the head make the best relation from all senses and gives a motor to develop. That says the brain forscher. Stereotyped says this wrote a book about it. Very interesting. Synchronization in the music is that what builds up these relationship feelings. So if you really play in the same pulse, you feel together. If it's not possible, you feel something is wrong, something is not really together. So to develop this feeling to be together is one of the results of music therapy with these children. So the last scene now, with the same boy from the beginning, you see he is climbing on a and I thought first he will not play today, but he starts with 3 sticks in the hand to play on the wood. And I take then this as a rhythm, and I take his movement with the head he makes this and this. So you see how not coherent he is in the body. He has, I'm sure, also a neurological problem in his body. He is not really coherent. It's not a center. He can make this, if you imitate this, you will see how irritating is this for communication if you do this movement. And I, as a partner, I think also, what can I do with this child? Can I take this movement, or can I make audible this or this? So this was in my mind in seconds going on. And then I search, I sing a so-called situation song. I sing what I see. A yes or no, a yes or no, so I give this a name. And he starts to be touched of it, and you will see what he's doing. Yeah, so thank you for the audience here, for your concentration. And this is